Today, we will focus on delivery tools. Previously, we dove into the discovery tools for outcomes, opportunities, solutions, and assumptions. And if you missed it, you can check out the video in the description. When a product team is ready to build a solution, the team can further de risk a specific solution. Generally, discovery is more about de risking demand, and delivery is more about de risking supply. We de-risk supply shaping. Let's zoom into the worked example section of the board where we can see these delivery tools in action. The explanations also has those tools in action, as well as written instructions for how you can apply them. And then when you're ready, you can use the templates to get started. So zooming in to the worked example, within the team level, we have discovery and then delivery. So let's zoom in a little bit more. And we have the delivery of the live sports minimal lovable product. So the output of shaping is ultimately a written pitch, which is shown here within the delivery tools. And there's a process to get to that written pitch. This pitch is a bet that the product team can deliver some version of the pitch within a time window, such as 6 weeks. By working through the solution ahead of time, we can identify the most important use cases and rabbit holes that would take up an unknown amount of time and risk us going beyond that appetite of, let's say, the 6 weeks. A product manager partners with their empowered product team to write this pitch. And let's look at our specific solution for integrating with local networks to watch live sports. During discovery, which is to the left of here, our assumption testing showed a strong demand for watching live sports, and the team felt comfortable enough to implement this solution. And that opportunity to watch those live sports, it drives a desired outcome of increasing the number of monthly viewed sports sessions. And when we step back for a moment, we can think about integrating with local networks as a potential multi-year endeavor. And really, what shaping is doing is that it increases the chance of delivering value more often and earlier. So zooming in a little bit further, we can start to see the tools in action for the shaping. In Ryan Singer, these tools are taken from Ryan Singer, um, and he muses about those in his blog. And there are 11 tools that will be demonstrated in this video. The first tool is called Trace. And Trace is great when you have an existing solution that is not quite right, but you're unsure of the exact reasons why it's not right. And there are 3 steps. The first is to record the user interaction of that existing solution. And you can click the play button here, and you can see me trying to find a live OU football game with me being the customer, trying to watch my live sport. And and in our example, we're pretending that we're Netflix. And most notably, uh, in this, so after you record the live session, you write down every step that uh, the user had, and then you highlight the steps that are the problems. And I did those in red, and then I put those in this third column here, which is just being very specific on what happened when I was trying to find live sports. And the most notable part of this was that when I went to Netflix, I could not find the game that I wanted. And then when I went to other options that were on Google search, these platforms, they required me to pay for the services during the off season. So if I wanted to watch the season, which starts 6 months from when I was searching for, you'd have to pay for those 6 months. You couldn't sign up beforehand. So those were two very notable issues. And after I thought about this situation, my mind filled up with different ideas, and that's where I wanted to um, dump these ideas out for what does a user care about when the game is live versus upcoming. And to get these ideas out of my head, I used Dump. This is the name of the tool. And this is where you just write everything down in a flat list. Um, and some of the things that came to my mind as I was thinking through about watching that game, as well as the Netflix platform, was that sports is really a top level category within Netflix as compared to TV shows and movies also being top level category. And after I got these ideas out of my head, um, I was then wanting to ground my thinking with a fat marker sketch. And that's the third tool in this example. And so I went to my iPad and I have an app called Notably where you can increase the pen size where it's larger than your small pen size. And that's where I started to sketch out where would live sports live within Netflix. And this fat marker sketch gave me some guidance on by suggesting that the live sport should really be dominant, but it leaves a lot of the other design details unspecified. Now that I was grounded in my thinking of where would live sports exist, I was then ready to uh, go through some use cases and dive deeper into what would be the flow of the screens to actually watch live sports. And breadboarding allows us to quickly test if a flow solves a use case without specifying all those visual designs. So this is the full screen of breadboarding. And there are three parts to the shorthand. There are places, affordances, and connection lines. Places are things that you can navigate to, like specific screens, such as the sports homepage. And then you have your affordances, which are things a user can act on, like clicking on search within that place. And then the connection lines show you how you move from one place to the other. So the search then takes you to the search results screen. And by breadboarding, I quickly create a flow for a user being able to search for a live game and then watch it after they found it. Next, I was having doubts about the flow um, for searching, excuse me, about what the search results look like. So after you search, what do you see as that result? And they could be games, it could be teams, it could be both of them or neither. And so that's where I used the mock and I dipped more into the concrete to dissipate my worries. We can see here that by typing in Oklahoma Sooners, which was the show that I wanted to, the game that I wanted to watch, we have results of games as well as results of teams. It's also the name of the team. And then you can also type in maybe a different result and you don't have anything. And so these are some of the use case. These are some of the different edge cases that you have to take care of when designing. So after creating this mock, I was then ready to start thinking about an aspect that came up in actually in the breadboarding, which is being able to follow teams. And so the idea is that within the breadboarding, if we were to go back to this, we can see that there is an ability to follow a team. That would be a affordance that exists in the sports homepage place. Um, and the question is like, is that the best place to follow a team? Because you could potentially also do it in, let's say, the search results of the teams that show up. And I was thinking, well, what is the best way to follow a team? And that's where I brought out this tool called Contrast. And I asked myself the question, how else could I follow the team? And at the end of it, there was two additional ways. And I thought the best way to do this is to actually let the product team experiment to figure out the way that a customer, someone that's viewing the video, should follow the team. And during this process, I also realized that there could be a relationship between following a team in which games show up on the homepage. And so then I used another tool, a delivery tool called Targeted Sketch. And this is where it's more concrete than the fat marker sketch, but at the same time, less concrete than the actual log. And that helped to alleviate that um, you want to follow a team. Maybe they'll have let's say, a star or some indicator that shows you and prioritizes those games, let's say, that are live or upcoming that are from a team that you followed. And at this point, I was ready to start writing my pitch. And there is a pitch template within within the template section that gives you all of the sections that you should write about. And after I started to write, it became pretty apparent that this work was significantly more than a 6-week project, even if you have several developers and designer on the team. And so I asked myself, what are those minimum use cases that I need to have for a customer to love the product? And it came down to being able to browse for a game and either playing it live, if the game is live, or save it if it's upcoming. Those three actions are necessary. And so with these three use cases in hand, I then went back and I breadboarded again. And that's the cool thing about these tools, is that you can use them in any order that you want. It's a toolbox. And by using a breadboard, I could come up with these screens, the homepage, the play game, and then being able to, the play game is like the actual screen in which the game is live and play and pause it. And then there's another screen that allows you to actually click the live or the upcoming game. And the beautiful thing about breadboarding was that this allows you to switch in and out of these screens without having to redo a bunch of visualization that you'd otherwise do in, say, Figma or some pure visual tool. And at that point, I could get back uh, to the pitch. And there's a product pitch template here. You click on this, and it goes to this is the example that I wrote, and there is also within the delivery, you have the template here that you can go to, and this will take you to the template itself, which you can fill in. So going back to our delivery section with our pitch, um, I recommend that you write this pitch with your team. And so, as a product manager, you're likely to have an engineering manager on your team, as well as maybe a staff engineer or a lead engineer, as well as your designer, and you bring in the different team members as necessary. And so once you have the pitch written and the team is, let's say, in a build cycle, they're ready to deliver, as opposed to maybe a cool down cycle. The pitch can be voted on against other pitches. If you have multiple pitches, it's possible that multiple pitches are ready at the same time. Um, and if there's only one, which is often the case, then it's time to assign an appetite, which is how long you want to work on this problem for. So the idea is that you have a fixed amount of time in a variable amount of scope. So if you have more time, you can have more features. Less time, less features. And once you assign an appetite, the shaping is now complete, and the delivery of this uh, of this pitch is now in the hands of the engineers and the designer. And so that would be from a product manager perspective, where delivery is uh, is complete. Now, there is more steps to one of these pitches after delivery. And Ryan, and that is when the engineering team starts actually working on the pitch that was delivered. And by the way, as a product manager, you're likely to get some questions during the build. So you're still to some degree on call for questions, but your mind can now go to other places. And and on that handoff, as Ryan Seeder calls it, um, for an empowered product team, it should be light. There should not be a lot of surprises when the engineers actually receive and look at this pitch maybe for the first time. And the reason why is that those same engineers during your discovery activities uh, should have at least attended one customer interview so they can feel the problem that the customer has. And whenever you wrote the pitch itself, probably brought in other perspectives to make sure that what you're writing is reasonable for the team. And so after writing the pitch, the engineers are going to figure out how to deliver it. And I'm going to put on an engineering hat for a little bit. In a previous life, I was an engineer, and I'm going to work through what an engineering team can do with this pitch to actually figure out what to first work on. And so after reading the pitch as an engineer in this case, the first thing I did was I I dumped out all the ideas, all the high level ideas that I had of what I need to do to start building. And some of them include getting the metadata for both the wide and the upcoming games, as well as thinking about what happens if you stream the game inside your house from multiple computers. And the way the internet works by default, those streams are going to be they're going to be out of sync, and that has an experience for the customer that we should at least be aware of in playing accordingly. The biggest, so after dumping out the ideas that I had in my head, so you can use these delivery tools, whether you're the product manager or the engineer, they're reusable. That's the beauty of them. And after dumping those ideas out, the biggest question I had was, okay, what do the video APIs look like for that local sports station that we are integrating with. And that's where um, I did a research spike in a time boxed amount of time to review those API documentations and query for the metadata like the title and game start to see what the results were. And the responses made sense to me. So then I was ready to move on. And the next problem that came to my head was with those feeds being out of sync within a home. And what happens during solutioning is that your scope will grow because you never know at the very beginning what everything is. And that's where we can use a tool called scope hammering to really just get rid of that extra scope that creeped up that will always creep up during delivery. And that's where I wrote down that these in sync feeds, whether it's globally, it's like everybody in the world having the same feed at the same time, or locally within a home, within a router, um, is being in the same feed, being in sync. Both of those are nice to have, which is different than a must have. And that allows us to deliver in 6 weeks. We're not saying we deliver everything, but just the must haves. And after the scope hammering, we come to another tool called Affinitize. And this is especially useful when you have too many things that are in your head and you don't know how they relate to each other. And for demonstration purposes, I'm going to show 5 of these items that were in my head. And we should note that the affinitizing is especially helpful when you have, let's say, 10 or more things. That's when it really becomes alive. But we have 5 here, and it should be noted that before the scope hammering there was 6. So we are actively uh, trying to have less amount of things to do. And the first step with affinitizing is that you dump the ideas out. And then the second step is that you group the ideas together, and you can have these 10 boxes here, and you put them the specific items in the list into the boxes, and you're letting your intuition guide you. So there is one called interface during the live game. I put that one in its own box. And then there is also an interface to browse games, as well as to automatically play a game at the start when the game starts. And I thought that those two were related. My intuition said that, so they went in the same box. And then afterwards, after you grouped them, you then want to actually label these groups. So I've called the first box live interface. The second box is finding the games. And the third is connect with local stations. Then the question is, of these 3, which one do I start on first? And I answered this with a couple tools, uh, interrelate, and then after that, sequence. So with the interrelate, the way it works is that I have a circle here, and I uh, create a label for each of these groups, and I draw an arrow from from one group to the input of another. And so connecting with the local stations inputs to finding a game, which inputs to the live interface. And if you have many different groups, then this can become much more complex. And there could be multiple inputs. Uh, right now, it's basically there's one input to finding games and one input to live interface, but you could have 2 or 3 that go to live interface. And that's where you can then use sequencing to pull those apart. And the way sequencing works is that um, at the very bottom, you put the groups with the least amount of inputs. So, or excuse me, put that at the top, and you work your way down. So connect with local stations has no inputs. So we put that one there. And then it comes down to, now that we've drawn these out, it is possible that you could have multiple of these groups with the same number of inputs. And if that's the case, then you can look at the two groups and compare them and see which one has the most unknowns. And whichever one that one is, you choose that one to work on. So in this case, it is straightforward. And we see that connecting with local stations drives the rest of this solution. So we should start with connecting with local stations. And that is a scope. And now we have the first prioritized scope for an engineering team to execute on. So let's bring this full circle. That particular scope is a deliverable for a pitch. And this pitch is a de-risked solution to a customer opportunity, which is driving a desired outcome. And that desired outcome is influenced from the business and product strategy. We have our desired, just to make it very clear, this is the solution here, integrate our local sports into this customer opportunity. I want to watch live sports, which then is to increase the median monthly sports sessions for sports fans by one, while ensuring monthly median sessions. And then that ultimately is there to drive recurring revenue. And this is related to what the product leader, so the manager of the product manager, has set for the strategy, including both the business strategy and the product strategy. And one section that's filled in here is the less about table. And the first entry is that we're more about high quality, best in class content and less about user generated content. So we see that the local live sports is that high quality, best in class content. So this delivery ultimately is fulfilling the vision set by the product leader. So you can get started with shaping by going to the templates and either copying and pasting the section here, this frame, or you can directly use it itself, type directly into it. At the top, we have the shaping tools that we went through with a quick when to use them guide, as well as hyperlinks to more details. And then you also have a pitch template you can use for writing. If you have any more questions, you're welcome to email me. My email address is Zack, Z-A-C-K, at zburgess.com. That is ZBURGESS.com. So Zack at zburgess.com. And thank you and best wishes.